Hello and welcome to the third episode of History Bubble Argentina. Last time we saw the many wars of the Argentine Confederation and the power struggle between the Federalists and the Unitarians during the Argentine Civil War, which ended up with the Unitarian victory, but with some Federalist policies. Bartolomé Mitre, as the new president was called, tried to modernize the country by building up infrastructure like railroads and ports. There was also a new major power in South America, Paraguay. While far from being the most populous country in the continent, Paraguay had, under their dictator Francisco Solano Lopez, started the largest military on the continent. These were the other two powers bordering the nation, Brazil and Argentina, who felt their power was threatened by Paraguay. Brazil had also helped the Colorados in the Uruguayan War. As you may remember from last episode, there was a power struggle between two parties in Uruguay, the Blancos and the Colorados, that fought for power over the nation. When last left, the Colorados had won the Civil War and were in power, but the Blancos had later taken over and the Colorados were trying to take power once again. They first attempted to do this by forging an alliance with the state of Buenos Aires, and in exchange for helping them, they would take the rest of Argentina. They, Buenos Aires, would aid them in overthrowing the Blancos. After the Colorados had aided Buenos Aires into forming the Argentine Republic, Argentina helped the Colorados by sending militias and supplies to them, when they later tried to take power in Uruguay again. The government of Uruguay, which was a mix of Colorados and Blancos, quickly collapsed, with most of Colorados leaving for the rebellion. New parts also started to join the war, like the Argentine Federalists, who supported the Blancos, and Brazil, who joined the other side. This completely shifted the power of the war, with the combined army of Brazil and the Colorados crushing the Blancos and conquering all of Uruguay, except for Montevideo, in a few months, and with the rest of the country occupied, the Blancos capitulated. The Paraguayan dictator did not like Brazil intervening with Uruguayan politics, and felt like they needed to disrupt the balance of power, so he sent an ultimatum demanding that Brazil stop aiding the Colorados in Uruguay or Paraguay would invade them. When no answer came, Paraguay invaded Brazil. For the next move, Paraguay was trying to occupy Uruguay, but to do this they needed to pass through Argentina or Brazil, and since most of their Brazilian forces came from Uruguay, they tried to take the Argentine route and asked for military access, but were denied, so they invaded Argentina as well and occupied the provinces of Corrientes and Entre Rios. Lopez had hoped for the former Federalist president Urquiza would help him, because he openly said that he liked Mitre, but he did not. Uruguay, now under Colorado rule, allied himself with Argentina to make joint operations possible, and Brazil soon did the same, forming the Triple Alliance this war is sometimes named after. They also say that no nation will stop fighting until the Paraguayan government was overthrown. Now that all of the nation had readied their armies, they could easily drive out Paraguay from both Argentina and Brazil. Paraguay's army started to dig in, prepare for a defensive war in Paraguay now. Even if they had started to dig into defensive positions, Lopez ordered a desperate attack to try to retake the initiative, with the Triple Alliance having more than 50% of the numbers. But this attempt failed. After much fighting and many more battles, the Brazilian army managed to outflank the Paraguayans and attack them in the rear, thus making most of the army flee. The few that didn't continued to fight with Lopez, but every day they were driven back even more. Stood the capital of Paraguay soon fell, and the Triple Alliance offered Lopez to capitulate, but he denied and fled up into the mountains, where he would fight and his army would continue to fight. The war continued one more year until the last battle, where Lopez lost his life and his army scattered, and the Triple Alliance had won the war. When the war ended, Paraguay had lost around half of its population, and only 12% of them were men, and most of these were either elderly or children. Argentina and Brazil had also taken a lot of the country's territory, and Argentina offered Brazil to annex the whole country, but they preferred to keep it as a buffer state between the two nations. Brazil had also taken large loans to finance the war, which left them less powerful than previously, which led to Argentina becoming the dominant power in the region. Uruguay also became more of an ally to Argentina, as they had helped them come to power in the Uruguayan War. But despite all of this, Mitre's popularity declined after the war, mostly because of their alliance with Brazil, which is their historical rival, and that they fought against Paraguay, one of the previous most valuable economic allies. So in the next election he lost, and Domingo Faustonio Sarmiento became president. Even if Argentina had won the Paraguayan War, they still faced many problems because of it, like the death of thousands of soldiers and the outbreak of the yellow fever, cholera, brought back by the soldiers who fought in the war. Domingo tried to introduce public schooling to Argentina and made some of the communication of the country better by building telephone lines. But he was still not very popular since he continued the war with Paraguay and many wanted him to stop Chile from taking land southern tip of America. After 6 years in rule, he stepped down, turning over his presidency to his former education minister, Nicolas Avenella. He continued the educational reform president and also tried to reduce banking of Argentina. Bartolomé Mitre also contested his presidency, rising up in rebellion, but he was defeated. The southern part of South America, or Patagonia, was fairly underdeveloped and much more indigenous than the rest of the continent, with none of the nations having control of it. But for a while back, Chile had taken over one of the many islands in the area, and there had been a line consisting of the Salvador River dividing the first Spanish colony and a new Argentina, and the indigenous people not wanted to be a part of the new society. Argentina for long wanted to conquer these lands, if not for the chance of Chile doing the first. And in 1870s, a group of indigenous Mapuches, which is what the indigenous people are called, killed about 300 Argentinians and stole over 100,000 cattle. The indigenous stated goal for Conquest was to populate the area, and they made peace with the tribe who had attacked them. But before long, the tribe made another attack, killing many Argentinians. But the tribes who fought were in the minority, and most even stayed neutral, settled among the Argentinians, and in a few cases even fought together with Argentina. But the Minister of War died before the war was over, and his successor, Julio Argentino Roca, was more aggressive towards the Indians, wanted to either subdue them or expel them. He was very aggressive, expanding downwards quickly, and a new Argentine settlement was starting in the area. Roca soon became the next president of Argentina, so the fighting had continued without them. Chile and Argentina also around this time wrote the boundary treaty of 1881, dividing the two countries by the natural boundary of the Andes Mountain. There was only one problem. There was two different borders they spoke of, the peak of the Andes and where the water flowed from the peaks of the Andes, if it flowed to the west or to the east. There was only one problem. These two weren't always the same thing, but even if they mostly referred to the same border. This created some border disputes, but this was solved by having the British monarch, a neutral part, decide the border. During Roca's presidency, they introduced a planned economy and made the primary educational free for all, and making a state control instead of church control. The agriculture also industrialized. A large influx of European immigrants also came to the country, and the city of Buenos Aires became a different province from the province of Buenos Aires, and the economy became better. But the way Roca achieved all this was through political manipulation and allying with other politicians, which earned him the nickname El Zorro, or the Fox, and his presidency was full of corruption. After his presidency, and a bit in the end of it, the long depression struck, crippling Argentina's racing economy, and a revolution led by the Civic Union, an opposition party to the current government, started it. Even though it failed, it succeeded in ousting the current president from the position, and the vice president took over. They also offered the Civic Union to choose a vice president, but this caused disputes between the Civic Party and divided the party into two, the National Civic Union and the Radical Civic Union. The new president, Carlos Pellegrini, created the National Bank of Argentina and stabilized the economy. Argentina and Chile also started a naval arms race at this time, with Brazil, seeing that they were being behind, joined later. The Radical Civic Union also rebelled and took over several Argentine provinces, including the most populous province of Buenos Aires. They held a Congress captive and were convinced that they would take power a legal way, but as they tried to do this, they left the Congress for themselves so they could plan against them, and soon they did, and the Radical Civic Union surrendered. A few of the leaders tried a second revolt soon after, but they were soon defeated, and after a few more presidents, Roca was once again elected to the position. He had still been a large political parade between the presidencies, for example helping with split of the Civic Union, but he mostly focused on bringing down minor rebellion and rebel group. During the next few presidencies, all men got the right to vote, and the First World War started. Well, that is all I have for you today. Next time, another Civic Union uprising. See you then.